I'm Meg from Cook with Meg, and today we are in the kitchen showing you a little bit about knife safety. This is by far the most important skill and lesson that you can learn and continue to practice over and over and over in order to be safe and happy and thriving in the kitchen. So in the next few minutes, we're gonna go through the basics, types of knives, types of cutting boards, and then we're gonna work on showing you proper hand technique as well as slicing and dicing and chopping. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, here we go. Let's start with the basics. I'm gonna move a couple things out of the way. We're gonna start by talking about the actual knife itself. So it's really important when you are learning about knife safety that you learn the different parts of the knife and how to hold a knife. That's probably one of the most, if not the most important thing about cooking, is how to be safe in the kitchen and how to properly handle the different tools that you have available to you. So I'm holding a chef knife. You hear about different types of knives, what kinds of knives you need in your kitchen. Honestly, if you have two knives, a chef knife and a small paring knife, that's really all you need. There are lots of different types of knives. Behind me, I've got a knife block that's got a million different kinds of knives. This one is actually okay to have two. It's got the teeth, the serrated edges, and this would be used for cutting bread or sawing through things. But if you only have two knives in the kitchen, you need a chef knife, which has a nice heavy base and a nice good thick sturdy blade, and a paring knife. So let's talk about the chef knife first. They come in different lengths and they come in different weights and they come in made in different countries. I would say if you're getting really into cooking, you might learn that the two biggest producers of knives would be German knives and Japanese knives. So I'll pull out a German knife. This is a Wüsthof knife, and this is a Schön knife, and this is a Japanese knife. So this one is actually mine, and this one's my husband's. We just like a different knife. You could see this one's longer. He's obviously has a bigger hand. I believe this is 8 and this is 10-inch blade. This one feels a little different in my hand. This one is just very comfortable. And I know that that sounds a little funny, but if you are getting used to a knife or you are in the market to purchase a knife, there are a lot of knives out there, affordable price points, and you don't want one that is too big for you. So if you're a child, you can go even smaller to 6 inches. 6, 7, or 8 inches, I would say, would be the max. And the style of knife is completely up to you. This one doesn't have it's all one. So the blade goes all the way through to the butt and the handle, and it's forged right inside the wooden handle. It is, it's just a great knife and it feels really good in my hand. So beyond what it feels like, how do you know what to do with the knife really comes down to how do we hold the knife. So I always like to say that holding a knife is like riding a bike. So if you were to sit on a bicycle and hold the handles, that's the grip you pretty much want with your knife, pretending you're holding the bicycle handles. So you want your fingertips to wrap around the blade, and your index finger and your thumb can do two things. Some people put their index finger on top of the blade. Other people put their thumb, they choke up a little bit on it, and they pinch the top of the blade that way. You just want to make sure that your middle finger is nowhere in the way of the blade, and this way it isn't. So you can pinch, or you can bring it back a little bit and put your fingertip on top of the blade. It works, they both work. The difference between a chef knife would be something that we would use to break down or cut and chop bigger items, vegetables, fruit, meats, all of that. But a paring knife, and this one is a Wusthof, it's a little teeny paring knife. These are really great for little fine detail. These are a great knife for younger kids and teens to use because it's obviously super lightweight. It's easy to handle. I also like this one. This is a little Henkel knife. It does have the little serrated edges, but it's plastic handle. It's so light. And this is a good one for sawing and learning. They also have for kids and teens, they've got more for kids, plastic knives that literally have a plastic blade, a nylon blade, and that actually is a really good starter. But the number one thing when you're picking a knife is you want to pick something that is a good price point for you. You want to keep your knives sharpened. So if you have a knife block, it might have one of these. This is called like a honing steel. This is not to sharpen your knife. This maintains the edge of an already sharp knife. This does not sharpen my knife. This is if I have a sharp knife already, I'm gonna maintain that sharp edge. So don't mistakenly think that this is your knife sharpener. I always say that if you do have a knife that is your go-to knife in the kitchen, sharpen it. Get it sharpened. It's a couple bucks. You can take it to a knife place to get it sharpened, but keep them sharp because a knife that you spend, I mean, $40, $50, all the way up to thousands of dollars, you want this to last for a really, really long time, so keep it nice and sharp. A sharp knife is actually what's going to help you in the kitchen. When you have a nice sharp knife, you actually don't have to press as hard on your ingredients. When we press really hard, that's when we run the risk of slipping and cutting ourselves, which is not going to happen. So, knife basics, that is a very basic description of what it is. I actually have a whole knife safety class that you can take at cookwithmeg.com, but that's just the basics. And maybe you're wondering why I'm holding a piece of paper towel. Well, paper towel is actually your best friend if you have a cutting board that wants to slip around. So let's talk cutting boards. Little ones, big ones, handled cutting boards, pattern cutting boards, rubber stopper cutting boards. There are endless amounts. What I recommend, if you can get one that's got the little rubber grippies, you will be so much safer because the rubber grip, it literally keeps your cutting board in place. So I really do recommend the rubber grip. There's the rubber grip on this one, keeps you nice and steady. Does this one have it too? Yes, that one also has rubber grips. So that's just an added protection for you in the kitchen. Now this one has a bunch of little rubber grippies, but it's a little more slippy on the countertop. So what I always say is, if you can get a piece of paper towel, take a little bit of water, squeeze out the water. This is even great on one that does have the rubber grips. It's just adding an extra layer of protection. Pop that down on your counter, put your cutting board on top, and it immediately helps keep it in place. So whether you've got a little cutting board for little jobs or you've got a bigger cutting board for bigger jobs, putting that piece of paper towel underneath, you could even open up 2 little pieces. Not really wet, just damp. Put your cutting board on top, boom, locks it into place a lot more than if it were just on the counter. Now, the other thing that I always say is have a dry cloth really close by when we are cutting and when we are working with knives. So I'm gonna bring over my chef knife and we are going to start to cut a few things just to give you the basics on knife safety and how to hold the knife and how to cut things that might be a little rolly and how to cut small things and how to cut super rolly things, because the goal here is safety, kitchen safety always. So let's talk how to hold a knife. seems pretty straightforward, and you think, well, don't I just pick it up? Like maybe it's like this. So ultimately, we want to go back to that bicycle grip. All right, so we're gripping it like this. You're going to automatically choose how you want your finger placement. If you want your thumb and your index finger to pinch the blade like so, go for it. If you would rather balance your index finger on the top of the blade, you can do that as well. But we haven't really talked about this hand. So your non-dominant hand, the hand that's not holding the knife, is called your guide hand. We refer to that as the guide hand. And what we do with a guide hand is curl the fingers under. So if we're getting ready to cut, let's say we have something on our board, we're gonna curl those fingers under like the letter C. Grip, C. Two things, always be mindful. Honestly, I'm wearing shoes. We wanna have shoes on in the kitchen so that you're comfortable and that you're protected. You wanna have a nice relaxed stance. You don't wanna have your shoulders up in your ears. You wanna just take a nice deep breath, tuck in your fingers, hold your knife, and start to cut. So the first thing that we learn when we learn how to properly cut things is where to put the tip of the blade and how to slice through. Because ultimately, when you hear the term slice and dice, we're really slicing through the ingredient. We can get to chopping, we can get to dicing, those are terms, but we're really slicing through an ingredient. So why don't we start with celery? Celery is probably the easiest thing to start with, but you might think, wow, Meg, that's not easy at all, because look at that, it's rolling around on the board. So you always in your mind want to think, when I slice through something, I want it to lay flat on the surface. So if I lay it like this, it's going to rock and roll and things might slip. But if I flip it upside down, actually, let's cut one of the ends off so it's a little more sturdy. Then we have a better opportunity for it to lay a little bit flatter. But I'm still not 100% convinced that this is as flat as I want it to be. So what we always do is we take our knife and we would, for something long like celery, we would slice all the way down that middle center of the, see how it's like a U? We slice right down the center, and then each piece can lay nice and flat on the board. So let's start by doing that. We're gonna turn it over. We're gonna hold our knife with the proper placement. We're gonna take the tip of the knife and we're just gonna place it down onto the cutting board, and then we're gonna take our guide hand, which normally is tucked under, and we're just gonna create a little bridge over the celery, and we're dragging the knife back. And what that's done is it's literally now turned this into two perfect little sticks that can lay flat on the board. Now as a beginner, take one away and we'll work with just one. Are you ready? Okay. So guide hand, what do we do with it? We turn it to the letter C and we place it kind of down on the ingredients because it's holding those ingredients in place. Then you can see I'm kind of turning my body a little bit. We're gonna start by slicing through the piece of celery. And there's that little piece. When you push something off the blade, push it down, never drag up. But we're basically just going to slice and push through. Slice and push through. Slice and push through. Slice and push through. Now, let's move this off to the side and show you that motion without any food. So, tip of the knife goes down, push it through, roll it back. Push it through, roll it back. I'll turn this way. Push it through, roll it back. Push it through, roll it back. So it's like rocking and rolling. We are rocking and rolling and rocking and rolling. Notice my knife point never comes up off. We're not doing this. We are pushing, 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 and it's practice. It's practice. So let's bring that celery back and let's try that same motion. Pull back, push through. Pull back, push through. Pull back, push through. Pull back, push through. It's kind of fun. Guide hand is tucked, push, 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 push. Take a minute, move everything off by just giving it a little tippity tap, get it off the cutting board, guide hand is tucked, we push, we push, we push, we push, we pull, we push, we pull, and then you can get going a little bit faster, but don't rush, never, ever, ever rush. Now, I have gotten down to only a little itty bitty piece. Now, if you're comfortable, you can certainly tuck your guide hand under and you can go all the way to the end. But if you're not comfy, and I get it, it's a lot, you can absolutely put your other hand on top and just help push it through. Push it through. That's okay. That's okay. Putting a little bit of extra pressure on it is completely fine. Now, let's say your recipe called for celery that was bigger chunks were needed. So maybe we don't cut the U. Maybe we leave it just like this and we just do big chunks. See? Guide hand is tucked, just bigger chunks. You just want to be really careful that you are not getting your fingers in the way. So when my guide hand is tucked under, take a look. All that's happening is it's tucking against my knuckle. Nothing is getting in the way of the blade. If my fingers are nowhere near the blade, we're sort of pushing the ingredients through. On top for the last couple, carefully drag it off the blade and repeat. So that is how we would cut something long. So let's recap. What did we do? We took a long piece that was kind of rolly. We sliced it carefully down the center so that it would evenly lay on the board nice and flat. We tuck in our guide hand, we position our fingers, we roll under, and we start the push, pull. Push away from us, pull back. Push away from us, pull back. Push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, push, 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 and you can just keep going. When I was studying, we had to cut 15 feet of celery. That's a lot of celery. So you really just need to practice, which is the very best way to do it. So we'll move the celery out of the way. My hands are a little damp, so I'm gonna dry them off. Really important, dry your hands. Let's move to an apple. Oh, she's very rolly. So how do you think we should get this to not roll around so that it's a nice, safe cut? My first approach is put your guide hand on the apple, get your nice good grip, and very carefully saw down one side of the apple, because guess what? Boom, flat. Turn this over, flat. So we can move this over here, and now we're dealing with a nice side that's flat and anchored, which is not gonna roll around. We're gonna tuck our guide hand in, and we're gonna do the same motion. Push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. If you're not comfortable with the push, pull, you can just tuck your hand in and you can just gently push down. Some of the items, some of the ingredients you kind of do have to push down. Look at this, you can use your hand on top. Now, one thing I'll tell you, oh, isn't that pretty? When you do have apple or something really stuck to your knife, always push down and away from you. But let's say it's everywhere, apple, celery, everything is all over the board and it's a real mess and I need to move it out of the way. Don't scrape with your knife because you don't want the blade of the knife to dull. So I always say cut with the blade, but flip it upside down if you need to move stuff away to your mouth. It's a good apple. Cut with the blade, flip it upside down to drag and move things out of the way. All right, one thing we haven't talked about is washing a knife. So can you still see me? I run my knife under water If you have a dishcloth, you can easily, carefully put it down, wipe the blade. You can do it that way. Run it under water. And for parents, this is the safest. Take your dishcloth, put it on the counter, and then dry your knife that way. Holding it, you could end up cutting yourself. So just dry it off, and guess what's gonna happen? That knife is going right back into the knife block. I cannot stress that enough. Use a knife, wash a knife, dry the knife, put the knife away. Any class with me, you will hear me say that. Okay, last thing I want to show you is a paring knife. Strawberries, little. Banana, small pieces, little pieces. A paring knife is great. You can still do the same motion. You can still tuck those fingers in. You can still saw. I mean, you can still kind of, the paring knife would be the one where I do put my index finger on, but look how tiny this is. It's a teeny tiny blade, which can help you get like paper thin pieces, like teeny tiny. Oh my goodness, I can literally see you through this piece. So detail work. If we have to carve little things, little shapes, little piece of like a banana that looks like a little piece of pie, little teeny tiny jobs. Maybe it is celery. I'm flipping the blade upside down to drag it. Maybe I just have a little teeny tiny piece of celery that I need. Paring knife, great tool. Detail, little detail. The blade is so much thinner. You can literally see through that. So paring knife, great for little work, little fine detail work. Same thing, run it under water. Take my towel, dry the paring knife. You could also make sure if you hold the blade up, you can pinch and pull it up on the blade. Just don't ever dry it this way. You can dry it upside down if you kind of hold your thing. And then watch, boom, put it away. Never, ever, the last thing I will say, and I'm going to be very serious, never, ever, 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 ever put a knife down into the sink. Spoons, sure, it could go in the sink. Never put a knife down in the sink, because let's say you do, and then I'm finished, and this goes in the sink, and this goes in the sink, and before you know it, my sink is full. Maybe the sink has hot soapy water in it, and next person comes along, they walk into the kitchen, they reach into the sink to get something, and they pull out a cut on their hand. So never leave a knife in the sink. I say, if you're in the kitchen to cook, you take on that responsibility to know that you have to do a clean. We're going to be doing a video about cleaning as we go, but specifically for knives, wash them, dry them, put them away. And that's it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this basic knife safety, how to hold a knife, how to handle a knife, how to cut a few things. It's about the grip, the finger placement, the guide hand, nice sturdy surface, and taking your time with that push-pull, rockin' and rollin' mission. And I hope that you have fun, and really, truly, it is about practice. They say if you practice for a few minutes every day, you will get so comfortable and so good, and cooking just becomes a real joy when you're comfortable and you're not nervous around a knife. That's it. Have a great, great rest of your day or evening or weekend. For more with me, cookwithmeg.com. And until next time, we will see you in the kitchen, and we are